There are two scenarios. First scene. You're at a party, surrounded by people you know. Conversations happening around you. Familiar faces. No objective reason to feel uncomfortable. And yet, part of you wants to leave. Not because you don't like the people, but because something feels slightly off in your internal state. A background tension that the presence of others doesn't relieve. A feeling that you're present in the place, but absent from yourself. Second scene. You're completely alone at home on a Saturday afternoon. No plans, no urgent notifications, no demands. Silence is available. The space is yours. And instead of relief, discomfort arrives. A restlessness with no identifiable source. The impulse to turn on the television, check your phone, or create any kind of stimulation that fills the space left by the silence. If you recognize either of these two scenarios, or both, you are experiencing something that goes far beyond introversion or extroversion. You are experiencing a dissociation between context and nervous system state, between what is objectively true about the environment and what the nervous system is perceiving as true about safety. Most people who struggle with discomfort during moments of solitude assume one of two narratives. Either that they are too dependent on other people, that they need to learn how to be enough for themselves, or that solitude itself is the problem, that what they need is more company. Both narratives are operating from the wrong premise, because the problem, in most cases, is not the presence or absence of other people. It is the presence or absence of a specific signal that the nervous system evolved to seek as an indicator of safety. And understanding what that signal is completely transforms the relationship with solitude itself. In the work of neuroscientist Stephen Porges, the creator of polyvagal theory, there is a concept that rarely appears in conversations about loneliness, yet is central to understanding why it affects different nervous systems in such different ways. It is called social neuroception. Neuroception, as explored in previous videos on this channel, is the nervous system's automatic ability to detect safety or threat before conscious awareness. Social neuroception is a specific extension of that process. It is the way the nervous system automatically scans the social field, facial expressions, vocal prosody, body movements, the heart rate of those nearby, in search of signals that indicate whether the social environment is safe or threatening. This social scanning system is not intentional. It is not conscious. It operates below the threshold of conscious perception at millisecond speed, and its results directly influence the state of the autonomic nervous system, determining whether the organism enters a state of safe social engagement where rest and genuine connection are possible, or shifts into states of mobilization and immobilization where survival takes priority over everything else. The implications of this are profound. The nervous system does not evaluate whether you are alone or accompanied in numerical terms. It evaluates whether the signals available in the environment, including social signals, confirm or deny safety. At a party with people whom the system does not identify as sources of safety signaling, the presence of many people does not create a state of safe engagement. The system can be surrounded by bodies and still remain in a state of vigilance. In a solitary space where the body's own internal signals communicate regulation, where breathing is free, muscular tension is low, and the attentional field is broad, the system can reach a state of safe engagement without a single human being nearby. Loneliness is not the problem. The absence of safety signaling is. And that signaling can be absent with people around, and it can be present with no one at all. To understand why this pattern develops, why some nervous systems learn to depend on external social signals in order to access safety, while others can generate those signals internally, we need to enter one of the most fascinating mechanisms in social neurobiology, the mechanism that explains why the state of one nervous system can literally regulate the state of another, and why the quality of presence matters infinitely more than the quantity. Human beings did not get this far alone, not merely in a cultural or philosophical sense. In a literally physiological sense, the human nervous system was shaped within the context of a group. Every aspect of its architecture was refined to operate in environments where other nervous systems were nearby. Other organisms whose physiological responses provided information about the safety of the environment. When one member of the group detected danger and their nervous system entered a state of mobilization, the other members around them received that signal through multiple channels simultaneously. Visible muscular tension, accelerated breathing, a shift in vocal prosody, dilated pupils, a change in movement patterns, and they responded in a coordinated way, not because they discussed the situation and reached a consensus, but because their autonomic nervous systems had synchronized around the warning signal detected by the first person. This process of synchronization between nervous systems is called autonomic co-regulation, and it is one of the most powerful and least discussed mechanisms in human neurobiology. Co-regulation is not merely emotional, it is physiological and measurable. Researchers in effective neuroscience have documented that in situations of close proximity between people connected by a secure bond, patterns of heart rate variability begin to synchronize, breathing can fall into phase, patterns of cortical activation show correlated rhythms. The organism of one person literally helps calibrate the organism of another, not through words, through physiological signals that nervous systems continuously exchange in close presence. This phenomenon has another name in the scientific literature: allorhythmic regulation. Regulation through the biological rhythms of another organism, like two pendulums placed close together on the same support, gradually synchronizing their rhythms without any conscious intervention. The presence of a regulated nervous system around another nervous system operating in a state of heightened vigilance can, given enough time and the right context, begin to reduce the activation of the more tense system, not because it decided to relax, because it received through multiple sensory channels signals that the organism beside it is in a state of safety. And for a nervous system that evolved in groups, another organism in a state of safety is evidence that the environment is safe. There is a specific line of research that documents this with remarkable precision. It is called social buffering. Studies conducted by psychologist James Cohn at the University of Virginia used functional neuroimaging to measure the brain activity of participants exposed to moderate threats, specifically the anticipation of mild electric shocks, under 3 different conditions: alone, holding the hand of a stranger, and holding the hand of an intimate partner. The results were consistent across dozens of experiments. The presence of an intimate partner, a bond built on a history of safety and reliability, significantly reduced activation in brain regions associated with threat processing and states of alertness, including the hypothalamus and the amygdala. The objective threat was identical in all 3 conditions. The shock signal was the same. The probability of occurrence was the same. But the neural cost of anticipating the threat was dramatically lower when a secure attachment figure was present. The nervous system did not evaluate the likelihood of the shock differently. It evaluated the cost of facing uncertainty. And that cost was lower because co-regulation was available. There is a detail from these experiments that is rarely discussed, yet it is central to the theme of this video. Social buffering worked most robustly when there was a history of secure attachment. The presence of a stranger, even one physically as close as the intimate partner, produced a significantly smaller buffering effect. What the nervous system was detecting was not simply the presence of another human being. It was the presence of another human being with whom there was a history of safety, someone for whom social neuroception had already accumulated a positive assessment over time. This connects directly to the central issue explored in this video. Some nervous systems learn that safety signaling comes primarily from outside, from specific people, from social environments recognized as safe, from nearby human presence. And when that external signaling is unavailable, when they are alone, the system cannot find the source it learned to use for regulation, not because solitude is inherently threatening, but because the system never developed reliable access to internal sources of safety signaling. If this video is reaching something that resonates, if you recognize this pattern within your own nervous system, this channel has more. Each video goes deeper than the last. Subscribe so the next one is already waiting for you. But there is something even more specific about how this pattern develops. Something that involves not only the physiology of co-regulation, but the history of how the nervous system learned to calibrate what is safe and what is risky when it is alone. And why the solitude that is restorative for some becomes for others a state of solitary vigilance that drains rather than replenishes. The distinction between externalized safety and internalized safety is one of the most important distinctions any nervous system can develop. Externalized safety is when the system's state of balance depends on sources outside itself, the presence of certain people, specific environments, enough activity to keep the system occupied. External stimuli that fill the space solitude leaves behind. Any of these sources can be legitimate and valuable. The problem is not needing them. The problem is having no access to any other form of safety signaling when they are unavailable. Internalized safety is the system's ability to generate from within the physiological signals that communicate to the autonomic nervous system that the current state is safe enough to reduce vigilance. It is not self-confidence in the motivational sense. It is not convincing yourself that everything is fine. It is the actual production of physiological signals that the nervous system recognizes as indicators of safety. And these signals come from very specific sources that research documents clearly. Breathing patterns are the most direct and accessible channel. Slow diaphragmatic breathing, with exhalations longer than inhalations, activates the vagus nerve and produces a parasympathetic response that the nervous system recognizes as a signal that the state of vigilance has passed, not as a relaxation technique in the superficial sense. As the genuine production of physiological signaling that communicates to the system, the organism is in recovery mode, not response mode. Every time this happens in a context of solitude, the system receives evidence that it can access this state while alone. Rhythmic physical movement, walking at a steady pace, gentle repetitive movements, activates oscillatory patterns in the central nervous system that reduce activation of the threat system. Research in the neuroscience of movement documents measurable reductions in cortisol and increases in heart rate variability following periods of moderate rhythmic movement. The system recognizes stable rhythm as a signal of a predictable and safe environment. Temperature and physical contact, a warm bath, weighted blankets, the warmth of a cup held in the hands, activate skin receptors that send signals to the central nervous system through C-tactile fibers, a type of receptor specifically associated with social processing and the reduction of threat system activation. Comforting warmth is, in terms of nervous system signaling, a partial substitute for social contact because it uses sensory channels that the nervous system normally relies on to process safe presence. And the voice, specifically singing, humming, or speaking aloud, produces vibrations that activate the vagus nerve through a mechanism different from breathing, creating a second channel of parasympathetic stimulation that most people never consciously use. Each of these sources is not a relaxation technique. It is a way of generating, from within, the signals the nervous system would normally use to confirm safety in the presence of a regulated organism. It is the gradual construction of internalized safety, one experience at a time. One tolerated moment of solitude at a time, with the accumulation of every instance in which the system was alone and did not encounter the catastrophe it anticipated. There is a concept in adult developmental psychology that describes this process with remarkable precision, building an internal secure base, a concept developed from the work of John Bowlby on attachment and expanded by researchers such as Mary Main and Diana Fosha to include what happens when adults develop the ability to regulate themselves without constant dependence on external presence. An internal secure base is not the absence of a need for connection. It is the ability to inhabit your own company without triggering the vigilance system, to sit with your own silence without feeling that the silence must immediately be filled, to be alone without interpreting that condition as abandonment, punishment, or evidence that something is fundamentally wrong. Think about how this begins to appear in everyday life as it develops. The Sunday afternoon that once generated restlessness begins to contain moments of genuine peace. Time without commitments stops feeling empty and starts feeling spacious. The quiet house after everyone has gone home stops feeling threatening and begins to acquire its own quality. Not perfect, not always easy, but inhabitable. Not resolved all at once, built in fragments. Each experience of solitude in which the nervous system discovered that it could. Now, connecting everything explored in this video. Social neuroception is the automatic system through which the nervous system scans the social field for signals of safety or threat, determining the state of the autonomic nervous system independently of conscious evaluation of the situation. Social buffering documents how the presence of a secure attachment measurably reduces activation in brain regions responsible for threat processing, with the neural cost of facing uncertainty lowered by the co-regulation available. Autonomic co-regulation describes how nervous systems in close proximity exchange physiological signals that influence one another's states, not through words, but through biological rhythms continuously detected below the threshold of conscious awareness. Allorhythmic regulation specifies the mechanism, the biological rhythms of one organism, cardiac, respiratory, movement-related, can literally synchronize with those of another organism in close proximity, creating a state of shared regulation. Solitary vigilance syndrome names the pattern of systems that enter a state of heightened monitoring specifically when social presence withdraws, not because of generalized hypervigilance, but because of a specific learning history regarding what solitude tends to mean. Neuroceptive mismatch describes the divergence between what the context objectively offers and what neuroception perceives, explaining why rationally knowing that you are safe is not enough to produce a state of safety. Internalized safety is the developed ability to generate, from within, the physiological signals the nervous system recognizes as indicators that it can reduce vigilance, independent of external social presence. And the internal secure base is what is built when the system accumulates enough experiences of solitude in which the anticipated danger never appeared, where being alone proved to be different from what the system had learned to fear. The problem was never being alone. It was never having learned that being alone can also be safe, and nervous system learning changes. Through repeated experience, through patience with the rhythm of the organism itself, through a willingness to inhabit solitude in doses the system can tolerate, until what once activated vigilance begins to reveal another quality. If something in this video landed differently, if you recognized your own pattern of loneliness in these words, share it in the comments. One word. What stayed with you? What changed after naming this mechanism? There is a direct connection between what was explored here and something this channel has already investigated in depth. The nervous system that cannot find safety when it is alone often cannot find safety when it finally stops. When the environment becomes quiet, when demands cease and there is space to simply be. Why calmness, in any context, with or without people around, can feel like the most wrong place of all for a system that was never given permission to rest. That is exactly the pattern explored in one of the deepest videos on this channel. Why calmness feels wrong to a nervous system that learned that safety always requires vigilance.